Hello everyone, I Anu Dhariwal welcome you all to the class. Children, as you know, we are discussing chapter 1 resources from your NCERT textbook Resources in Development of Geography. Last time we discussed what are resources. Let us move ahead with the chapter and discuss the types of resources in this session. Resources are classified into natural resources, human-made resources and human resources. So there are three kinds of resources: natural resources, human-made resources and human resources. We'll discuss them one by one. Let us first talk about natural resources. Natural resources are those resources that are drawn from nature and are used without much modification. That means we obtain them from the nature directly, without any modification, without making any changes to them. For example, air, water, soil, minerals are the natural resources. Natural resources are classified into different groups depending upon their level of development and use, origin, renewability and distribution. So, we can also classify natural resources, and they have been divided depending upon their level of development and use, origin, renewability and distribution. Natural resources also called as gifts of nature. Now let us talk about the natural resources and how they are divided. Number 1, natural resources on the basis of level of their development and use. How they are divided on the basis of level of their development and use. So on this basis they can be divided into potential resources and actual resources. Now what is the difference between these two? A potential resource is not being used currently. That means we are not using it at present. Whereas an actual resource is one which we use currently. A potential resource can prove useful and become an actual resource in the future, and an actual resource might have been a potential resource in the past. It may end up in the future. That means, children, potential resources, we are not using them right now, but they can prove more useful in the future. That means when we start using them, they can be proved more useful. But actual resources which we are using at present, they say they might have been a potential resource. That means we might not be using them in the past time and it may end in the future. That means when we are using these resources at present, they may end up in the future. We will not get these resources in the future. Examples of potential resources is uranium deposits in Ladakh. That means there are uranium deposits in Ladakh, but we are not using them right now. Why? Because the level of technology we have at present may not be advanced enough to easily utilize these resources. That means our technology is not much developed to use these kind of resources. Whereas the example of actual resources is coal deposits. So children, at present in this generation we are using coal. So we say if we are using them right now, they may end up in the future. The entire quantity of a potential resource may not be known. That means we do not know in what quantity the potential resources are present. Whereas the actual quantity of an actual resource is known. We know the actual quantity, in how much quantity that thing is present. Suppose if we are talking about coal, so we know in what quantity is coal present on the earth. That is how we are able to say that it may end up in the future. Whereas potential resources, we are not using them right now, so we do not know how much of it is available on the earth. Now natural resources can be divided on the basis of origin, and on the basis of origin we divided them into two parts, that is biotic and abiotic. Now biotic resources are those resources which are living. That means all the living beings come in under the category of biotic resources, whereas all the non-living things come under the category of abiotic resources. Examples of biotic resources are plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, etc. Whereas abiotic resources are water, sunlight, soil, air and temperature. On the basis of renewability, natural resources can be categorized into renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Now what are renewable resources? They can replenish themselves by quick recycling within a reasonable time. That means they can be restored again in the nature by recycling with a reasonable time. Within a period of time they will be stored again back in the nature. Whereas non-renewable resources, they cannot replenish themselves by recycling and replacement. We cannot replace non-renewable resources and they will not be stored back in the nature, neither by recycling or neither by replacing them. Renewable resources are not likely to be exhausted. That means these resources will not get finished or used up totally. For example, soil, forest, wildlife, underground water. That means they cannot finish. Non-renewable resources may be exhausted. Example, minerals, fossil fuels like coal and petroleum. So minerals that we are using in great quantity these days, fossil fuels like coal and petroleum are being used recklessly in this generation. So these might be exhausted. That means they might end up in the future. So renewable resources are those resources which can get restored by quick recycling within a fixed period of time, and non-renewable resources cannot restore themselves neither by recycling or by replacement. On the basis of distribution, natural resources can be classified into ubiquitous resources and localized resources. Now what are ubiquitous resources? These are the resources which is found all over the world. That means you will find these kind of resources everywhere on the earth. Whereas localized resources are the one which is found in a particular region or physical condition. That means these resources may only be found in a particular condition or in a particular region, not everywhere in the world. Ubiquitous resources are not physically governed by physical condition. They are not governed by any physical condition. Whereas the localized resources are governed by physical conditions. That means physical conditions of the environment will affect the localized resources, whereas any physical condition will not affect ubiquitous resources. Ubiquitous resources are found everywhere, like the air we breathe in. That is also a ubiquitous resource because it is found all over the world. Air, it is present everywhere. Whereas localized resources such as minerals might not be found everywhere in the world. They are not found in each part of the world. They are only found in certain parts. That is why we are saying that they are governed by the physical condition. Not every condition or every environment is perfect for the minerals to be found. The distribution of natural resources depends upon number of physical factors like terrain, that is a stretch of land, climate and altitude. Altitude means height. So the distribution of these resources, natural resources, they depend upon a number of factors. Three of them are terrain, climate and altitude. The distribution of resources is unequal across the earth. These resources are not equally divided, children. They are divided unequally across the earth. This is it for today, children. We'll see you in the next class and we'll continue the same topic. Till then, take care, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.